We'll call to order tonight's Committee of the Whole for the Auburn City Council meeting for December the 19th, 2023. The City Council should have the minutes from the Committee of the Whole from our December the 5th meeting. Any additions or corrections to those minutes? If not, is there a move to approve?
So move.
Second.
A motion is second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the minutes will be, are approved. Questions on tonight's agenda for the city manager? Anyone have any questions? Ms. Crouch, you have handed us a couple of additional, agendas here. We have a corrected agenda and a corrected,
Yeah, nothing
Item.
germane is really changing. It's just one of the property owners on item 8C2 was incorrectly listed, which permeated to the agenda, and that's an easement and rights-of-way acceptance. And then a staff memo for a conditional use approval for the Beehive Park Lot 6 and 7 was a final plat staff memo was in there instead of the conditional use staff memo. So those have been traded, and I emailed those to you yesterday.
okay. All right, everybody good with that? Any other questions? Okay. Is there a move to adjourn the Committee of the Whole? All right, we adjourn. For our audience, we'll get started right at 6 o'clock. call to order tonight's Auburn City Council meeting for December the 19th, 2023. We welcome everybody that has joined us live here, and we welcome those that are listening on WANI, as well as those that are watching through our streaming services. Allison, with the roll call?
Adams,
Here.
Koblenz,
Here.
Dawson,
Here.
Griswold,
Here.
Mormon,
Here.
Parsons,
Here.
Taylor,
Here.
Witten,
Here.
Anders.
Here. Would you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and then remain standing for a moment of silence? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Earlier during the committee of the whole, the council took no actions. There was a discussion about some agenda items that had suffered a few minor mistakes that were corrected and presented to the council tonight. Just a couple of things from as far as mayor's announcements. In the last 2 weeks, I've had the blessing and the fortunate opportunity to attend Christmas parties of our public safety professionals, our police and our fire, and be with, particularly their fire, be with their families, and with police, be with their significant others. And I just remain steadfast and proud of the men and women who protect us each and every day, that allow us to live freely in our community. It was fun to be with them in a fun, casual setting as they enjoyed themselves here at Christmas time. But I'm very thankful for them and certainly wish all of them a Merry, Merry Christmas. Anyone else on the council have an announcement they'd like to make tonight?
Yes, sir. I'd like to tell everybody Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and we'll see you again to next year. I hope we will remember the true meaning of Christmas. I think sometimes we forget why we celebrate Christmas, and I think that's very important. So I want to just say Merry Christmas to all the council. It's been a good year, I feel like, and a Merry Christmas to Megan and all your staff, and to the entire city of Auburn. And hope you'll join me. I'm not big on New Year's resolutions, but one thing I am determined to do the coming up year is to treat others like I would like to be treated. I think it would go much better for this city and for the entire community if we would just simply remember that one rule: treat others like you would want to be treated. And I have caught myself recently. I'd get ready to do something, and I'd say, "No, wait a minute, Tommy. Would you want to be done that way?" I know I wouldn't. So keep that in mind, and I challenge each and every one of you to do that this coming year, particularly our city employees and the council. Just think about, before you speak, think about, would you want somebody to speak to you in that tone? And let's treat folks like we want to be treated, and we'll be a much better community for having done so.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Chief. Anyone else? Okay, I'm not expecting anyone from Auburn University to be with us tonight for Auburn University Communications, so now we'll move to citizen communications on items on tonight's agenda. If you'd like to speak to the City Council about an item on tonight's agenda, now would be the time for you to speak. Please come forward, and you have 5 minutes, and we'll ask you to give your name and address for the record. There are a couple of items on our agenda tonight under ordinances and resolutions that do have public hearings attached. If you'd like to speak to the City Council about those particular items, please wait until those public hearings are open. Anyone? Okay, we'll move forward with City Manager Communications.
Mayor, we have 2 vacancies on the Cemetery Advisory Board for terms that begin February 5th, 2024, and end February 4th, 2028. The appointments will be made at the January 16th meeting, and the application portal for those opens tomorrow morning.
Thank you.
All right, our first item of business is the consent agenda. Does any council member wish to remove an item from the consent agenda and deal with that item individually?
Anyone? Yes, sir, Mr. Warren.
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to remove item 8, Bravo 1, and item 8, Bravo 7.
Anyone else? 8B1 and 8B7. Okay, we'll start with 8B1.
Item 8B1 authorizes a contract with Ashbury Landfill LLC for tire removal and disposal as part of the Police Department Firing Range Improvements Project in the amount of $40,000.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Warren?
Yes, sir. Thank you. I've tried to determine whether or not this is a good deal for us or not, and it's tough to get a perspective on how many tires are involved. But I think we're talking thousands. So The charge for disposal of a passenger car tire is $3 a tire. That's what the tire retailers in the Auburn area pay. And they pay $8 to get rid of a truck tire. So best I can tell, we're getting a good deal on the disposal of these tires, and I presume that Ashbury landfill is an ADEM-approved facility, so they are.
State-approved list of transporters and disposers.
We did get one other quote, it was $90,000.
Saw that, 99,000.
Yep, 90 plus, yep.
Wide
Yep.
divergence there. And I heard that there may be a possibility, rumor, I guess, of some reimbursement for ADM for scrap tires. I don't know if there's any truth to that, but I thought I'd raise that just in case that there was some possibility.
So ADEM does operate a scrap tire program. As far as the eligibility of this project for any reimbursement, I'm uncertain. We can do a little homework on that and see, but not that I'm aware of.
Thank you.
Thank you much.
All right, anyone else have a question or a thought?
I'd just like to say, this particular deal should have been done a long time ago. This is behind on this, and I'm glad to see it happen. I'm glad to see we're getting rid of those things, and I think if you saw it, Mr. Sonny, you'd realize that we're getting a deal at that price.
I did. Megan, city manager, sent me 2 pictures, and it was impressive. It was an impressive amount of tires. I would guess that it's hard to say from pictures, but several thousand.
Yes, sir.
So the estimate, it's not an exact count, but there's anywhere between 6,000 and 8,000 tires out there comfortably, up to 10,000 if you're looking at the additional piles out there off to the side. So
And where are those tires stored at this time?
They're out at the police firing range.
Oh.
Chief Dawson knows all about them.
Oh, yeah.
All right, any other questions? All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. 8B7.
Item 8B7 authorizes the purchase of 24 Pentagon F-18 mobile HVM barriers, also known as traffic barriers, for the police department from Noble Supply and Logistics in the amount of $58,256.
Move for approval.
Second. All right, we have a motion and a second. Mr. Mormon?
Yes, sir. We call these nasty flip your car barricades. We don't ever want to have to say, how could that have happened in Auburn? So I'm proud to support this purchase, and I pray that it will keep our citizens safe when we gather on special days and for special events. And I'm fully behind this purchase.
We've already purchased.
Correct. This
some
is
of
the
these.
second grouping. This completes the needed barricades. This allows us on the largest of parade routes we have downtown, which includes a Titchener closure, among others, to barricade everywhere we need to barricade with these. Will?
this will bring us up to 50. 25 last year and 25 this year.
And these were out at the Christmas parade this year.
Absolutely. And these are one of the other things that we did a lot of research on because we looked at installing ballers in the streets and all kinds of things. These can be deployed quickly. They're not terribly hard for our public safety team to move them into place and then take them out of place. But as Councilman Mormon said, they will, if a car tries to go through them, they're going to flip the vehicle in a heartbeat. And I think some of you have watched the YouTube videos of that. And if you look these up, you can see what they do. Will?
That's correct. These don't require a forklift or any heavy equipment to put them in place and remove them like the concrete jersey barriers that we've used in the past or the water barriers. So much more flexible.
Do we have a delivery date for these?
We do not yet.
Okay, thank you.
You know, this just is another reminder of the great effort that we go through as a community and as city staff to provide safety and security when we have downtown events, particularly parades. We want everybody to have a good time, and it be a great time of memory and laughter for our families. But boy, there's a lot of effort that goes to make sure that happens. So thank you again for all y'all's hard work. Okay, any other comments or questions? All right, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And the motion carries. Do I have a motion to approve the balance of the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other further questions? So all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the consent agenda is approved. Ordinances.
Item 9A authorizes an electric franchise renewal with Alabama Power Company. Unanimous consent is necessary.
I'll introduce the ordinance and ask for unanimous consent.
Second.
Have a motion and seconds. Anyone on the council have a problem moving forward with a vote on this evening? All right. Seeing and hearing none, any comments or questions?
Sonny?
Yes, ma'am, and yes, sir. We don't see these agreements very often. I'll be 102 when this one renews. Just to summarize what I think this is about, there are no fees obligated by the city of Auburn in this agreement. The agreement grants monopoly status to Alabama Power Company in the form of a franchise in Auburn. Alternatively, also Alabama Power Company in turn provides power and infrastructure and charges the users for the service. And alternatively, the surrounding governments, Lee County uses Dixie Electric. Opelika has their own power service.
So the city of Auburn has 3 power providers. There's not a monopoly in Auburn. Within, there are electrical service territories that were years ago established by the Public Service Commission. So within Alabama Power's service territory, that they are the sole provider with the exception of large industrial projects that can invoke a provision called customer choice. And if you're a large enough user, that's up to large power users to do that. We also have Tallapoosa Electric in the northern part of the city, and we do have Dixie Electric in parts of our industrial areas as well as the southern part of the city. And then those 2 franchises are up for renewal in the next 12 months as well. So you'll see more of that. Also, I think it's important to note fees associated with the franchise are regulated. This is by state law, but it comes in the form of business license. And they do pay tremendous fees for this, but it has to do with their business license side of it. And all of that is set forth by state law.
Thank you very much. I was not aware of all that. I appreciate that. Alabama Power Company obviously does a very fine job in reestablishing power in my area for sure. We get telephone texts and whatnot. And I assume that we've had a cost and benefit analysis, much like Opelika had to go through, and I suppose other municipalities around that don't use Alabama Power. We get a benefit for having a very large concern take care of our power needs, and we don't see a need cost-wise or benefit-wise in having our own power company like Opelika. I don't know what drove that decision, but it is starkly different. And I suppose we went through a cost and benefit analysis to get to the point of this 2-page agreement.
So the 2-page agreement itself, I had the same question for our finance director because this is a much shorter franchise agreement than you see 30 pagers at times for other utilities you've dealt with. This is more because state law strictly mandates how electric franchises are done. In terms of the city's history relative to why we didn't have our own electric authority, I do not have that information. I don't think any of my staff probably does. There were some questions when Opelika had their own internet services that were also through their utilities, why we didn't, the city of Auburn didn't have its own internet services owned by a city utility, and the answer was because we're not in the electrical business. And currently with the way the service territories are drawn out, I'm pretty sure, but I would have to check and happy to do the research. If you're not in the game now, you're probably not getting in the game because service territories have been defined, and they were defined by the equal distance between 2 current providers. They went smack dab to the middle, and they actually cut lots and do all kinds of things. My vast industrial experience is why I know so much about service territories, but I don't know that we could step in anymore in this day and age and establish our own, but I'm happy to check if you need some more information on that.
Oh, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
Yeah, I'd like to be on record saying how much I appreciate Alabama Power. I live on Cox Road, every time the lights go out. Remember I said that.
They do a fine job, and
They
they're
sure
very
do.
community-minded. Rob, we appreciate everything you mean to our community, and thank you for your service as well. Okay. All right. Now, with the roll call.
Witten,
Yes.
Adams,
Yes.
Koblenz,
Yes, ma'am.
Dawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Griswold,
Yes, ma'am.
Mormon,
Yes, ma'am.
Parsons,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes.
Anders.
Yes.
Right, under ordinances, item 9B1 is a request to rezone approximately 6.1 acres from industrial to comprehensive development district for property located at 3325 Skyway Drive. The Planning Commission recommended approval of this request by a vote of 4 to 3 at its November 9th meeting. Unanimous consent is necessary and a public hearing is required.
I'll introduce the ordinance and ask for unanimous consent.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Does anyone on the council have a problem moving forward with a vote on this evening? Okay. Seeing and hearing none, I'll open the public hearing. If you'd like to address the city council, please come forward and give us your name and address for the record, and you'll have 5 minutes to address the city council.
Brett Basquin with the Foresight Group representing the client.
Sorry, he's fixing the timer. There you go.
Man, I was about to say, that's a quick one. I got knocked out. Coming to address you on this particular project, I had some slides, but essentially, all of Glen, from the Opelika city limits line all the way to Doug Sanford Park is CDD along the frontage. This is probably one of the only few that have not been, that is not CDD zoning. The actual neighborhood across the street from us was in C20, I think. That was there was a parcel on that frontage recently rezoned to CDD 4 or 5 years ago. I know because I did it. And so all we're looking for is, this is an old, a previously constructed industrial building. The industry in this area for an industrial use is kind of moved with how the airports kind of redid their entrance on that side of town. We feel like this use on this particular building has been vacant. We have a potential church user who's currently in a large shopping center in town and would like to relocate and renovate this existing building into to service it for that. We just feel like it's a good use within that area. That area, for the most part, all those properties along Skyway are zoned industrial. Almost all of those buildings in there are used as office. It's basically turned into an office park. The future land use plan shows for an office park, and we feel like a church use is compatible with that. The way that site is set up, that building, there's a 2-story building. We would utilize it, the 2 stories as well. The previous site plan allowed for expanded, a 25,000 square foot addition to that building, so there's plenty of room. And we've also talked with adjacent property owners. I have letters from 3 of the surrounding property owners, the Scott family, Vandy Harper, and a gentleman back behind us that are support our proposed use. We've talked with them. We have plenty of parking on site for the foreseeable future, but in the event we grow, a lot of those adjacent properties, we've had conversations with them, and they are open to us utilizing their parking lots, especially in these other office locations on Sunday for when we have services, just because they're not going to be used for that time as well. But that's the quick and short of it. Be happy to answer any questions. I have the pastor here that could speak if there's any questions council has in regards to church growth, and those types of things.
What if sorry with the council, why don't we hear the other people who would like to speak, and then if we have questions, we'll ask you to come back forward. Is that okay, Mr. Baskin?
Sounds good.
Is that okay with everybody? Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Who'll be next? Anyone else? Let's speak during the public hearing. Okay, I thought I saw someone stand up back there. Okay, all right, you're available for questions. Okay, thank you. All right, anyone else? Okay, we'll close the public hearing. Questions or comments from the council?
I have a couple.
Yep.
Instead of rezoning, is it not possible to ask for a conditional use inside an industrial zone for a church?
It is not possible
Okay,
because it's not in the table of permitted uses.
okay, thank you.
Does it have to be 10 acres, did I hear?
That's for a planned development district.
Oh, okay,
You'd have to be 10 acres. In the industrial zone in the table 4.1 in the zoning ordinance, churches just aren't, they're not shown as permitted or conditional, which means they're not allowed in that zone at all. The theory behind that has always been that industrial zones are for industry. It's about 3% of the city's land use is industrial, and churches can go in many other zones in the city, so those are left to be industrial uses because they're specific to where they are to residential areas and other things. Yeah.
Any other comments, questions?
I have a brief one. I appreciate Councilperson Witten. That got about half of mine, but the rest of my comment is that I was over there and I stood around and I looked at it, and I think a church fits nicely. The problem that we're having, the reason that this is difficult at all, is because the staff doesn't recommend it. And the staff doesn't recommend it, I think, because they see that in the industrial zone is a good fit for that area over there. The things that are there make sense. But I think a church fits nicely in there, and it fits nicely because of a lot of reasons. Church is a good neighbor. Church's traffic is on the weekends, and the rest of the office park traffic is generally during the week. But if we rezone it tonight to CDD, or Comprehensive Development District, this may allow a whole host of uses, maybe unintended consequences down the road. And I think that the Planning Commission was divided on this, probably for that very reason. So in this case, I'm not sure that our zoning regulations served us well. I mean, we would think that it's a good use of the property. I certainly believe that. But it's hard to fit it into the zoning regulations. Even though I don't really wish to rezone it, I do support the church as a good neighbor, and I think it will work fine. And I guess I'm willing to take that risk. I think they're, I hate to disagree with the city staff on this, but I think it's the right thing to do in this case.
Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor, I just want
Please.
to say I fully support the use here. I think it's a great location for this church. I think it's a great use of this particular facility. I certainly understand your points, Mr. Mormon, and city staff's points about the use of the building, but I think to me it looks like it's a great fit. I've kind of thought that from the beginning, so I feel like this is a great place, and I'm just excited to see Grace Auburn Church continue to grow, and just our Lord will continue to use them in our community. So just thankful that they are continuing to stay here. So thank you.
Ms. Crouch, the uses that could come up in CDD, what are some of those uses that the staff is most concerned about?
Well, they're on the page 2 of 3 in the staff memo. The challenge with CDD, well, a couple of things here. The future land use plan, this wasn't the staff's making a recommendation purely based on the future land use plan that isn't, it's currently zoned industrial, and then it's slated to be more office. And so the land use plan, as a reminder, is adopted by the city council. So that meant the city council at the time agreed with that recommendation as well. And so that is why staff is consistent in what it recommends. The only other way you rectify this is you create a zone for this that is not the CDD zone. The concerns lie with multifamily residential. Yes, it is across the street. There is frontage here, to Mr. Basquin's point. However, there's a natural gas line and a detention pond on the direct frontage of Glen Avenue, making it, unless you remove the detention pond, impossible to build on. And the industrial zone doesn't speak to churches. It doesn't allow them permitted or conditionally. So they're in a very tight spot here. The prudent thing to do in the long term, not saying for this case, is to actually create a zone that addresses the land use plan. And we have this not just here, in many other pockets of the city. I was talking to Mr. Wahid Cotton this afternoon about this, and that's one of his intentions as he gets his feet on the ground, is we have got to create more zones to match the land use plan. So the current property owners and the future property owners are in a very tough position, and CDD is the only zone that they can really ask to go to, because it is akin to Mr. Baskin's point to other zoning adjacent. And it puts you in a very tough position as well, because there isn't a way to do this in a neat box. It has to get outside of parameters. I think the challenge is it's not necessary that, and not that they would want to put there, and it's not highest and best use, but single-family detached housing would not be welcome here, adjacent to the airport, adjacent to other light industrial uses and the high volume of traffic on Glen Avenue. Yes, it exists across the street, but that's been there a long time. And so there's just many other things that may not be akin, but there was no other zoning choice for them to request. And as a reminder, you can't get a use variance from the Board of Zoning Adjustment because that's not allowed. There is no such thing as a use variance. So they're in a tight spot, as the staff is. And so, the ultimate fix is to study this area, to create a new zone for it. And if you do approve this tonight, is to also place this property in the newest zone, assuming it allows churches to make it akin to everything else down the street, which would probably be this light commercial office park, not heavy industrial, and akin to office and a few other matching uses once the staff gets a chance to study it. But it doesn't help you for tonight. I mean, that's the end game.
So where would an office park go in our current zoning, in CDD as well? Or we do not really have a zoning for that?
Yeah, so to answer your question, currently as industrial does work, like Mr. Baskin referenced, the existing uses over there really do resemble an office park. And so that was one of the reasons that staff recommended against the rezone to CDD, because industrial does allow for these office park uses.
Yeah, and so do other zones. There's limited depending, and also it kind of to Councilman Mormon's point with Plan Development District overlays, it's allowed in various and other sundry zones as well. And I can't LDD likely, but he will check. But yeah, there are places that it's allowed. But this has been along industrial, and the Vandy Harper buildings were also built originally as part of an industrial side of things, as well as the concrete operation that's been out there a long time. All of that was industrial around the airport, but much has changed, to Mr. Baskin's point. So a number of things in the city are caught up in a desired land use designation, which is accurate, but the zoning doesn't match, because CDD allows everything from single-family detached housing to light industrial and everything in between, virtually. And that's what the challenge is. And so it's not to Grace Church, but if they were to sell with the CDD zone, whatever is allowed in that zone would be allowed to go on that property.
So I guess just a continuation to answer your point. So it's pretty much permitted. So it's conditional in industrial. It's conditional in PDDs, the CRD districts, RDD district, rural district, and then the UN districts as well. And so, I mean, it's permitted by right in several districts across our zoning ordinance. It's just in this scenario, just kind of as like Skyway was developing, it did match the future land use plan, and the existing uses did match. That's why staff recommended against it.
I'm not sure if Mr. Dean or Mr. Baskin would be best. Could maybe both of y'all come forward and just have a few questions? As y'all plan potentially to make this move, can you kind of give me an understanding of where y'all are as far as how many people are with you now, and what's the capacity of the church as it stands, and making this addition, and then kind of go into the parking that you have around there?
Yeah, happy to. Thank you all for your consideration tonight. Currently, we have 400 adult members and 224 children that we count as members too. So we're a congregation just over 600 people. And we, on typical Sundays, would gather anywhere from 700 to 800 people spread out over 3 services. And our lease in our current facility is up at the beginning of next year, so just a few months away. And so this move would help us significantly know how to best plan for our future as Auburn continues to grow, the church continues to grow, but not at record-breaking pace. Our growth has been kind of steady out of COVID. It's been a consistent growth, but not astronomical overnight. And so from my perspective, our church growth has been healthy. And when we think about this potential facility, it will be able to adequately host us for many, many years to come. And truthfully, I'm not even envisioning selling the property down the line, as that concern was raised, if it was going to another property. What I would love to be able to do is keep that as a church and plant another church in another location in Auburn as the church continues to grow. our goal is not to become the biggest church in Auburn by any means, but really to serve our city comprehensively and try to do so in a way that's thoughtful and considerate towards the growing needs in the city, especially in the northwest quadrant where there are fewer churches in particular. And just for context, we have been on a 26-month journey. We have walked land, buildings, we've reached out to the mall, to local banks, to everywhere. And at the end of this property in particular, both on a cost and opportunity basis, really is suitable for our needs and will be a significant help for us as we continue to serve the community at large.
And you're currently in a retail location?
We are in the
A shopping
former,
center.
yeah, the Tiger and Iron Gym that we renovated just before COVID, and it's roughly 10,000 square feet. This move would put us at just under 60,000 square feet, and so it would accommodate our needs for a substantial amount of time.
Sure. Mr. Baskin, as you look at the ingress and egress of 700 or 800 people on a Sunday morning getting in and out on Glen, as an engineer, do you see concerns with that?
Well, no, I mean, especially on Glen, we're at a 5-lane section, you know what I mean? And we have a signal there now. So it's, Glen can handle that amount of traffic. In a lot of places, there's very few places other than, unless you're on the bypass, on East University or Shug, where there's few places where we have a 5-lane section to be able to handle that kind of traffic. And we don't have a 5-lane section on Moore's Mill. We don't have a 5-lane section on North Donahue. We don't have a 5-lane section. Really, it's just College, Glen, Shug, and the bypass, you know what I mean? So in regards to location, being able to get people in and out, the infrastructure is there at this location to be able to handle it. One of the other questions you talked about was, how much parking on site. There's existing 215 spaces on site. Essentially we were talking about, the auditorium in this thing would sit probably around 500 people. So there's really almost, 2 spaces to 1 seat, 2 people to 1 space, whereas the code requirement is, 1 per 4. So we pretty much have twice as much parking and then have availability for parking,
Does that
immediately
include the
adjacent.
across the street, Mr. Scott's office park right there?
That would be outside of this. 215's on site. There's
Okay.
room that we could add more. Like I said, there was room to add more parking on site, but there's 215 there now on site without even having to use anything off site.
Does anybody have any questions for these gentlemen while they're standing up here?
I do.
Yeah, please.
If this is approved tonight as CDD, and if we as a city and a council develop a new zone that would incorporate more of what this should be, would you entertain us coming to you and you agreeing to having it rezoned to that for future use?
I would defer to Brett and his expertise on that, but I personally,
Yeah, I think we've had discussions. I mean, the long term of this is for this to be their permanent home. You know
Okay.
what I mean? And I think that we would be open to that.
Okay.
I don't think I envision, right, similar to what is done along South College with the South College zoning that basically allows your frontage on to be commercial, but you give up your rights for, residential use. That has, you know what I mean?
Right.
I would see that coming in along Glen, something similar to prevent exactly what what Megan was talking about, you know what I mean? So
Right, thank
I
you.
think that that we're open to that, I don't think that's an issue.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you, guys. Yeah, appreciate it. All right, anything else from the council?
I agree with Max totally. I think he put it well. I feel like he feels about it.
Anyone else?
I'm right in tow with Max and Tommy on this one. I think it's a great use of the space, and looking forward to seeing Grace Church continue to grow.
This building's been empty for a while, and it is at a unique place. If you look at where it is in our community and where it is next to Opelika, I want to be very honest with everybody here. My son goes to this church, and he's a member there, and he's a proud member of this church. But I am thankful for what they do in our community, but I also believe that they have worked hard over the last 2 years to try to find a place to locate their new facility. And I think this is a good conclusion for them to land here, and I'll be supportive of this tonight. Anyone else? All right, roll call.
Adams,
Yes.
Oblentz,
Yes, ma'am.
Dawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Griswold,
Yes, ma'am.
Mormon,
Yes, ma'am.
Parsons,
No.
Taylor,
Yes.
Witten,
Yes.
Anders.
Yes.
Item 9B2 is a request to rezone approximately 2.8 acres from rural to limited development district for property located at 1729 Old Wrights Mill Road. The Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of this request at its November 9th meeting. Unanimous consent is necessary and a public hearing is required.
I'll introduce the ordinance and ask for unanimous consent.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Does anyone on the council have a problem moving forward with the vote on this evening? Okay. Seeing here none, we'll move forward with the public hearing. If you'd like to address city council, please come forward and give us your name and address for the record. Close the public hearing. Any comments or questions from the council? All right, Alice?
Oblentz,
Yes, ma'am.
Dawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Griswold,
Yes, ma'am.
Mormon,
Yes, ma'am.
Parsons,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes.
Witten,
Yes.
Adams,
Yes.
Anders.
Yes.
Item 10A1 is a request for conditional use approval of a commercial support use warehouse for property located at 539 Airport Road in the Comprehensive Development District zoning district. The Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of this request at its December 14th meeting. A public hearing is required.
Move for approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. This time I'll open the public hearing. If you'd like to address the city council, please come forward and give us your name and address for the record, and you'll have 5 minutes. Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing. Any comments or questions from the council? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Item 10B2 is a request for conditional use approval of a commercial support use warehouse distribution facility for property located at 3151 and 3201 Hive Commerce Parkway in the Industrial Zoning District. The Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of this request at its December 14th meeting. A public hearing is required.
Move for approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. This time we'll open the public hearing. If you'd like to address city council, please come forward and give us your name and address for the record. You'll have 5 minutes. Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing. Any comments or questions from the council? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
All right, and last but not least is item 10B, authorizes a contract with Floyd Service Company Incorporated for the installation of Musco Sports lighting systems at various parks and recreation facilities in the amount of $834,700.
Move for approval. Second.
I have a motion and a second. There's no public hearing on this, right? Megan?
No, sir.
Okay. Any comments or questions from the council? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries.
Mayor, those are all the items of business we have for you this evening.
Okay. At this time, we'll open up Citizens Open Forum. You have 3 minutes to speak to the council about anything that might be on your mind. We'd ask that you share your name and address for the record, and please make all your comments directed towards the city council, and do not call out any names of our staff and employees.
Robert Wilkins, 261 Denson Drive. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Councilwoman Taylor, thanks for bringing your daughter over to the city council meeting to learn about our city government from time to time. Thank you for caring for a relative in your home. I know how difficult that is. Also driving to Tuskegee University every day for work while being a council member. I assume you, Colonel Kelly Griswold, and Lieutenant Colonel Sonny Mormon, remember your first Christmas away. Thanks for your service and supporting our freedoms such as religion and speech. Councilwoman Whidden, I appreciate you coming to introduce yourself to my wife at the Christmas market, introducing your 2 lovely daughters. I envy you, Council Adams, with your 2 girls, and Councilman Koblitz with your 3 children. The atmosphere that's created by children at that time of year is so wonderful. My daughter's 34, so I've unfortunately lost that. Councilman Parsons, as a native Australian, I know it must have felt great 30 years ago to celebrate your first Christmas in the United States. I remember my first Christmas 61 years ago when I was age 6 in the United States as a native German. I was living with my grandfather, adopted father in Edgewater, Alabama. My father gave me an old rusty bicycle and a new handlebar horn. We used aluminum foil and oil that made that bicycle look great. A Christmas I will always remember. Chief Dawson, not leaving you out. I appreciate your years of service as a fireman and as our
Whoa.
chief. You ever were a fireman?
No.
I'm sorry.
No,
Fire
no.
chief. Fire chief?
Police chief.
Police.
Boy, I did bad. Sorry about that. Forgive me. The year's over with, so we'll
Don't ever
start
call me a
this.
fireman.
So I don't know why. He kept saying chief, and I guess I was thinking fire chief. Sorry, Mayor. And I assume you worked some Christmas days when you were police chief.
I tried to work every one I could because they gave time and a half.
Okay. Okay, great. Oh, I remember my first Christmas at the United Methodist Children's Home in Selma. They had a Sunday school class at the Alabama Avenue Methodist. They gave out these small cards, sheets that you could put in slots for quarters and nickels and all those type things. And I remember, back then movies were 25 cents and popcorn and all that was 5 cents a piece. Something that I filled all my slots, and one of my friends asked, "Why would you do that since you live at the children's home?" I said, "Well, it was my first time to give back to a place that had given me a real family."
Thank you, Mr. Wilkins.
Can you have a Merry Christmas?
Yes, sir.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Who will be next?
Thank you.
Good evening.
My name is Johnny Dowdell, and I live at 1216 Combs Avenue. My concern tonight is the construction that's going on Martin Luther King Drive. I live, when I turn off of Combe and get onto Jordan, I cannot see the traffic that's coming to the right. It's very hard to see. So you have to get almost out in the street to make the left, and that's detrimental. It's really, because I did that one morning and I got beeped, but I didn't have a choice because I couldn't see to the right. And you can't see on Bird Street either when you go that way. Nor can you see on Foster, nor Boykin, and all the way to Mary Brooks Drive. So my concern is that could we have someone to direct traffic? Because right now, it's kind of dangerous, not only for myself, but for others that live in the neighborhood as well. So I believe, I'm just asking, can we have someone to direct traffic? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Dowdell. Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Same to you.
Mm-hmm. Ms. Crouch, is just a general update of how that project is going. What are some of the landmarks we can expect in the future as far as it finishing and being completed?
I'll have to ask Mr. Wood. He's with our engineering services department filling in for the city engineer to speak to that. I wasn't prepared to give you a full update
No,
of
that's
project
fine.
progress tonight. We do keep it updated on our website relative to completion. I can say with site distance blocking, some of that would have to do with construction equipment, barrels, and other things that will be moved, and there's been surfacings and other things going on that cause that. So on a given day, absolutely there can be equipment blocking views. Brian, do you have a general update?
Yeah, I mean, we're on schedule. I'm trying to see what the anticipated end date is, but we are tracking with our
Okay.
proposed schedule at the beginning. And I'll be sure to check out in the morning, check these intersections out for any construction drums or anything that may be a hazard to
Okay.
view out on MLK.
Okay. Thank you.
Now, with that being said, I think mostly Miss Johnny did talk to me about this. With that being said, I think her question is there any way that someone can be, when that does happen and you got equipment there, is there anybody that can direct traffic, even if it's the person that's actually during the construction?
Something we would have to look into, so if if they're not doing contractual things that require it, the contractor would not be required to direct traffic. It's usually when they're blocking lanes and moving traffic around, and we do not typically have extra police officers available to do this. So that's why Mr. Wood needs to go look and see what the issues are and see how we can address it with where they're parking equipment and things to help that out. They should be actively working in the area. It should be the only time it should be seriously blocked. And if they're actively working and blocking things, then there should be somebody there contractually to direct traffic. But we'll just have to get out there and see what she's talking about and make sure that they're addressing it.
So, Ms. Johnny, we'll look into it this week, okay?
And thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Yep.
Yeah. Who'll be next? Anyone? Yes, ma'am.
Martha Shamp, 307 Camellia Drive. Sexually graphic, immoral, and inappropriate books remain in the Auburn Library, such as Welcome to St. Hell, My Trans Teen Adventure, Active Duty, Gay Military, Homosexual Romance, Gay Military Homo, that's all we need. This one looks innocent enough. Let's talk about it. This book is absolutely filthy. Inside are drawings of young men having homosexual sex and dog-like sex, and advises teens to use porn.
Ms. Shamp, I don't mean to interrupt you, what you're trying to state,
Pause.
but
Greg, pause, please.
I understand the point you're trying to make, but knowing your audience, we had young ears in this audience today, and that's different from what your point is. And I think you have every right to say your piece and so forth, but we had young people and their parents did not have the opportunity to know what you were going to say. And that's very different from the point you're trying to make. So now that they are gone, they got up and left. But
Good.
I would just ask in the future when you make these remarks, which I'm not saying you shouldn't, because that's your belief and your feelings.
Yes.
But please look around, because young ears that you remove the opportunity and choice from with what you're saying.
You've provided for all the young children. You've bought these books, not me.
No, ma'am, you are removing the choice from them hearing what you just stated, not them making a choice.
I am very sorry if a child hears this stuff.
You had three children in here.
How do I know ages?
Well, you looked
No
around,
need
you
to
can
keep
tell
arguing the
ages.
point.
turn around and
Mayor,
look.
Mayor, no need to keep arguing the points. The kids are gone, let her finish what she wants to say and we'll be through.
Are you ready to begin the timer again, council?
Please.
Sorry.
Continue.
May I continue in freely?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. These books are filthy, perverted, disgusting, and vile. The Queer Principles of Kit Webb, A Homosexual Romance, among many, many others. These are just the tip of the iceberg. This folder just shows you a small sample of the filth that's on the shelves. Who buys these books? You do. The library director buys them. You pay and sign the checks, send on more money to buy more of this for children, and we can't even speak of it. The city council, they appoint the library director. Who does he get? The manager, Jim Buston, you inherited him, and you continue to retain him, knowing the filth that he has provided in the last 3 years, since 2020. The city council assigns the land, the buildings, and the equipment for the library. You own it. You hold the purse strings. You write the checks for all of these filthy books. This is nothing. There are hundreds of them in there. Hundreds. You bought them, not me. You've seen the toxic effects they have, I would think, on young children's souls. Any child age 12 and up can roam the library without a parent and see this material. Why do you buy these books? Why? You hold the purse strings, and you're paying for these books and making excuses. Nothing's been done in a whole year.
Thank you, Ms. Shant.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone on the council?
Yeah, Mayor, I'd like to say, comments I made earlier, I had nothing against firemen. Please don't.
Good talk.
You're very brave people that fight fires. I just never want to go into a burning house, but if I call you tonight, I want you to get there in a hurry. But our fire department does an excellent, excellent job. So it just wasn't for me.
Remember, he lives on Cox Road.
Yeah, exactly.
Certainly wish our community a wonderful and Merry Christmas, and I certainly echo what Chief Dawson said. There's a primary reason that we get together with our families on Monday and celebrate the Christmas holidays, and I hope we all take time to reflect on that and have a happy new year. And I want to remind everybody, our city council will not have its normal work session a week from Thursday as we prepare for the January 2nd city council meeting. So that will not happen that day at 4:00, but our next meeting's on January the 2nd. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Move to adjourn.
We are adjourned.